Oh, yeah, this conversation's already started. Joining the table now is Dr. Jason Johnson. He's professor of politics and journalism at Morgan State University and the host of the Slate podcast, A Word. Welcome, my brother. You have a word for us this morning. So I just want to just put in the middle of the table here. It's like a big croissant, right? All flaky and ready to talk about, because when you bite into it, it is nasty as hell. And that's what we heard from Donald Trump in South Carolina. What was your reaction to this conversation in front of a room of African Americans in which he, in my estimation, sounded ignorant?
He doesn't sound ignorant. He sounds like Trump. This is the same guy he's been for the last 25 or 30 years. This is the same guy. I mean, he just emasculated Tim Scott earlier this week.
Yes.
And basically said, you've been bojangling and dancing for me for weeks. You did a better job talking about me than you. So why are we surprised that he gets in front of a room of black people and treats them like idiots, treats them like they are lucky to be there? The thing that got me, honestly, Michael, is I didn't see any Trump Force Ones. I mean, that's what I was looking for. I was I thought black people, I thought we were all going to vote for Trump because he has a new pair of sneakers out. But none of this is shocking. And I don't think that any of the people there expect any better of him, because if you're voting for Donald Trump and you actually want to show up in a place where you claim to be a Christian and want to vote for Donald Trump, you're already lost. And you're not a voter that can be talked to, reasoned with, or have much expectations of.
Right. So I don't expect much from the people in the room, but I do think that just because Donald Trump has been saying it, and frankly, the fact that Donald Trump has been like this for so long and he has not ever course corrected is as much as an indictment, I think, on our political discourse and the coverage of him than the people standing in that room. Like, Donald, first of all, he called the president a racist. On top of everything else, he said that Joe Biden was a racist. He said that black people can identify with me because they're telling me I've been discriminated against. Like, he talked about the fact that a lot of black people are buying a mugshot shirt and they were printing them and selling them up themselves. They are with me. I do know a lot of people that bought the mugshot shirt. Donald Trump has been 4 times indicted, 91 counts. The only reason we have a mugshot is because of the black DA in Fulton County and the black sheriff that made sure he got one to ensure that he knew that he was not above the law. So it is disgusting. It is offensive. I was gravely offended by the South Carolina party chair, the Republican party chair, who said, I mean, if I don't know by now, what?
Then you
what am I
really
supposed
know
to
me
accept?
for sure?
What am I supposed to accept? When the sneakers came out, we didn't say it on the show. We said it in the break. We were talking, and I'm like, oh, it's really offensive because they think black people going to vote for them for sneakers. And then people go on Fox News and they say, black people going to vote for sneakers. At this point, it is like black Americans deserve a elevated discourse. Do they not think black men care about the economy?
Like the sneakers, and then as we were talking about in the last block, and menthol cigarettes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because that's all we do is we wear gold lame sneakers and we smoke menthol cigarettes.
But you have to.
Oh, and we have mug shots too. So
you have to understand, though, this is a room of very unique kind of black folk. Okay, it's a bunch of bad lineups and members-only jackets, right? Like that's what we're dealing with here. And so I'm not surprised that these sorts of people accept that. These are the same people who listen to Killer Mike. These are the same people who listen to idiots on podcasts. These are the same large number of black folks who listen to Joe Rogan. Those people are out there. I'm less concerned with anybody who is okay with Trump's racism than I am with the people who are so disconnected from the process that they're not worried about his racism. Those people are more of a concern for me than the people voting for the guy.
This is his pitch, though, to the sneakers with this. Yes, he was speaking to the room, but the cameras were there. He was speaking to black people across the country. These are their talking points. Right. This is what it is. I mean, let's just be clear about Donald Trump's record for black people, because I wrote it down. Under Trump, the black unemployment rate went up and the uninsured rate went up. His tax scam reinforced discrimination. The typical white household got double the cut of a typical black household. The COVID response disproportionately affected black people, left us dead. Disproportionately affected black-owned businesses. They closed. He pushed to bring back stop and frisk. Like, do we need to go back to Central Park 5? Birtherism? Like, there's a list here. I can go on.
Well, especially because he's never let the truth get in the way of a good story, right? So, of course, he was going to go up there and spin his record. That is what he does in front of every group. I think the thing we're all trying to figure out is he's not trying to win the black vote, right? He's trying to just siphon off enough black voters and create a permission structure where it may say, you may have voted for Democrats all your life, but it is okay for you to vote for me, which is why I'm almost more curious about how Democrats then counter that narrative. how they close that permission structure.
Here's the thing. There is no permission structure. I don't think, my personal philosophy on this, my intellectual philosophy on this, it ain't about switching votes. Okay, Donald Trump, Killer Mike, any of his surrogates, any rapper that he got out of jail. Yes, it's about keeping people home. It's about saying, Joe Biden is terrible, I'm terrible, your life hasn't changed much, don't get involved. Yes, he ain't trying to switch anybody over. He's trying to get you to stay home.
It is a voter depression tactic. In 2016, he won 8% of black voters across the country. In 2020, again, about 8% of black voters. The last election, he got about 8, I do believe 9% of black voters. To the point that Garrett made at the top of the show, if it's the margins that matter here, because this is going to be a close election. And if Donald Trump is able to, instead of getting 8%, maybe he takes up to 12 or 13, or that and the depression of some black votes is enough for people to stay home. I encourage people to, because I have black men in my life that voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Okay, my husband is not one of them, because I know people. My husband from South Carolina. My husband is not one of them. I just want to be clear. My man is not one of them. But in 2016, I know black people that voted for Donald Trump, and so I am not shocked nor surprised. But what I do encourage people to do is do their research. It is not true that Donald Trump had the lowest unemployment rate ever for black people. That happened under Joe Biden in April of 2023. Right you know, it's not true that he has, you know, done the most for HBCUs. Like, that happened under Joe Biden and this administration. Like, it's do your research, folks. Just give a quick Google search, because I can't. I mean, it is offensive. It is offensive. It is offensive. And for the people to continue to write think pieces and parse what he said, and it's like, oh, well, you know, this is just Trump and it's a play for black voters. This is so unserious. So unserious. Do we not deserve more? And damn it, it's Black History Month.
I don't. Here's the thing, though. These are not, I mean, to quote Succession, these are not serious people. They never have been, right? But what I always look at when I look at any of these conversations about black folks, I always expand it, right? I always expand it to the rising majority that's in this country. Yes. It ain't gonna fall on the shoulders of black people as to whether or not Joe Biden gets elected. The people who are not being discussed enough are the increasingly conservative, young Asian and Latino men in places like Texas and Arizona and Colorado. That's going to be the difference. And while everybody sits and has this laser focus on black men, you've got Latino men who are working at the border who are like, hey, I don't like these immigration issues. Why is nobody talking about me? You've got Asian American men who are saying, hey, wait a minute, I don't think affirmative action has worked for me. We have this twisted focus on the wrong group of people. No matter if every single black person, and always, you always had 12, 13% of black people who end up voting for a Republican anyway. If every single black man in America who voted for Trump went and voted for Joe Biden this time, it ain't going to change much.
I don't think that's true.
But a large, I'm telling you, even unless you look at a place like Georgia, right, which is a very, very small margin, but most of those black men, it's not going to end up making a difference. But if we look at Latino men and we look at Asian men, that's where the difference is. That's where the focus needs to be. We have the Democrats have to have the Democrats have to have a pivot to different kinds of people and stop talking to folks who are 55, 60 years old who listen to what an old rapper has to say, because their vote's already decided. It's those 18, 19-year-olds who are working right now at CVS and Verizon who don't see a difference, who are the ones who are liable to either stay home or switch their vote.
Now, the internet gonna be on fire by what you just said about black men, Jason. I just want to get your mentions ready.